John Kenneth Galbraith, Paul Samuelson, Milton Friedman, John Maynard Keynes. What do these names have in common, and why should they be important to you? Well, 8 weeks ago, I would have answered this question with a quizzical look, but not today. Each of them was an influential economist and considered by many to be some of the greatest economists of our time. And one of the greatest was Milton Friedman. And today, I wish to tell you a little bit about this Nobel Prize-winning man. You see, over the last 8 weeks, I have been studying economics, and I have been researching Milton Friedman, and I have been impressed not only by his works, but his accomplishments. Milton was born in 1912, and he grew up in New Jersey. He was 17 when the Great Depression began, and this influenced the direction that his education took. Without this influence, he may have pursued his first love of mathematics, and we would have been absent his brilliant economic ideas and theories. Friedman's monetary policies were revolutionary as well as controversial. He opposed all types of government activity, including regulations on industry and working conditions, and the licensing of professionals, especially physicians. He advocated that all public programs should be turned over to private industry. This included our nation's schools, highways, water supply, and the like. He also wanted to see an end to the public welfare system as it existed, and still does today, and have it replaced by a program that he developed called the Negative Income Tax Program, or NIT. The NIT is actually a fairly simple, in theory, expansion of our current tax system, but in reverse. And instead of paying tax on income that you earn, you would receive money for income below a certain level. The way it works is this way. The government would set a minimum income tax level as well as a negative tax rate. So let's assume that this minimum livable income for a family of 4 is $10,000. If this family of 4 earned $8,000, there would be a difference of $2,000 between the minimum livable income and what they earned. The government would then set a negative tax rate. And that negative tax rate in this case, let's say it's 25%. So a family who earned anything under $10,000 would be paid 25% of the difference. So in this case of our family of 4, $2,000, 25% difference would be $500. The family would get a check from the government for $500. A family with 0 income would receive the full benefits of $2,500. Now, if you earned over $10,000, the tax system would work as it does today. You would pay whatever percentage it is on the income that you've earned. Any families at that level of $10,000 would neither owe money or pay money. And this was the process, this was the program that Milton wanted to have replace the welfare system. The idea garnered the attention of President Lyndon Johnson, and a test was commissioned in 1968 in the state of New Jersey. The tests were considered inconclusive, and they ultimately showed that the program would have been too difficult and too costly to administer. And although it was never implemented, many aspects of the NIT were adopted by both the Nixon and Carter administrations, and they were included in their attempts to reform welfare. But research was Milton's real passion, and perhaps no other topic drove him more than the Great Depression. This was a turning point in our history, and one that influenced Milton greatly. Milton believed and laid out evidence that the Great Depression could have been avoided, or at the very least mitigated, had the government had a different policy of expanding cash and credit, which is really the lifeblood of our economy. See, as banks were folding back then, the availability of cash and credit was drying up. Companies could not get the needed capital to expand and weather the downturn, which meant they couldn't keep employees, they couldn't hire new employees, they couldn't build new buildings. But had the government bailed out the banks and freed up this cash and credit, Friedman believed that it could have minimized the length and damage that the Great Depression did to our economy. To put it in terms that we can kind of relate to today, Milton would have endorsed our government's recent steps to bail out the bank. This type of bailout is exactly what Friedman thought should have happened during the Great Depression. But his economic policies aside, what struck me most about Milton was more his activism. He was actively involved in many causes, and one of his greatest achievements, by his own admission, was his part in abolishing the draft, which is about as far away from economics as you would think you could get. He was a strong proponent of a voluntary paid military, and an idea that was not only shunned but reviled by many during that time. And this belief put him in the crosshairs of many powerful men, including General Westmoreland, whom he had a famous confrontation with that was detailed in Rose and Milton Friedman's memoirs, Two Lucky People. During the congressional hearings on the draft, and in the course of General Westmoreland's testimony, he had stated that he did not want to command an army of mercenaries. Milton Friedman responded by asking, would you rather command an army of slaves? The general responded by saying, I don't like to hear our patriotic draftees referred to as slaves. To which Friedman responded, I don't like to hear our patriotic volunteers referred to as mercenaries. Milton went on to say, if they are mercenaries, sir, then I am a mercenary professor. You are a mercenary general. We are served by mercenary physicians. We're using mercenary lawyers. And we get our meat from a mercenary butcher. That was the last time we heard from the general about mercenaries. And it was shortly thereafter that the government abolished the draft. The life and times of Milton Friedman is vast. It's an interesting topic and one that I believe is worthy of further research. His impact on our lives is lasting and profound. And I believe the words of writer Brian Doherty said it best when he wrote that thanks to Friedman, we are no longer fortunate in the armed services. Thanks to Friedman's monetary ideas, the cash in our pockets is worth something close to what it was a year ago. Thanks to Friedman, many more people appreciate the arguments against government policies that are no longer considered as untouchable and unquestionably right as they were before he came along. I encourage you to learn more about Milton Friedman and our country's economy. Thank you very much. Have a great day.